acted by throwing his own urine and feces around like this.
If you have watched Suits, you may think every courtroom is like this. Jail cells and recreational yard activities aside, inmates spend a good amount of time in courtrooms where all the insanity happens. It is unimaginable to think about all of the crazy things that happen in the courtroom. Top 10 most insane courtroom moments. Number 10. Man attacks defendant. In a courtroom, emotions run high, especially when someone other than the judge attempts to dispense justice. Let's take a look at a situation that unfolded in Jacksonville, Florida. Tragically, a child fell victim to a drive-by shooting, and the individuals responsible for this act have been found guilty and are awaiting their sentencing.
See where they put him, what it did to him.
During the court proceedings, a strange event takes place. Chaos erupts. The deceased child's father launches an attack on the defendants while the other family members join in, delivering punches and blows. The bailiffs manage to separate the fighting relatives, and despite understanding the father's immense anger, they proceed to handcuff him. Gradually, sheriff's deputies begin to evacuate the courtroom. Unfortunately, this already painful day takes a turn for the worse for some individuals. Number 9. Joshua Harding. This is Joshua Harding from Lansing, Michigan, who is currently undergoing a trial for 2 charges related to sexual assault. Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Jonathan Roth is present in the courtroom. It has been reported that Roth requested a longer sentence for Harding. Now pay close attention to Harding's actions with his hands. Fortunately, Roth manages to evade him just in the nick of time, and Detective Brian Cannon intervenes, restraining Harding. With the assistance of 2 court deputies, Harding is brought down to the ground. At that moment, a spectator seems to point something towards Roth, revealing a makeshift knife. Eventually, Harding is sentenced to a term of 20 to 60 years after pleading guilty to attempted murder, in addition to his existing 19-year sentence for the sexual assault charge. Number 8. William Green. Meet William Green, a resident of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Previously, he was residing in a mental health facility until he was arrested on charges of battery. Present at the Broward County Courthouse is defense attorney Julie Chase, who finds herself at the center of the incident. Observing Green, he initially appears to blend in with the others in the room, calmly seated. However, in an unexpected turn of events, Green stands up and silently approaches Chase while she is representing another individual. The suddenness of his actions catches everyone off guard, leaving the room in shock. Chase instinctively grasps the side of her head in pain. Within moments, law enforcement officers swiftly intervene, apprehending Green and bringing him down to the floor. Other defendants awaiting their court appearances promptly make way as officers secure Green and escort him out of the room. In the aftermath of the assault, Chase is taken to the hospital for medical treatment, while Green is transported to a different mental health facility rather than being sent to jail. Number 7. Shai Angelau. In this video, a U.S. Marshal is seen firing 4 shots at close range inside a federal courthouse in Utah. The incident occurred when the defendant, Shai Angelau, who is a member of the Tongan Crip gang and aged 25, rushed towards the witness stand and swung a pen at a shackled witness. Despite the witness narrowly avoiding the attack, Angelau was shot by an unidentified U.S. Marshal, who intervened just as he was falling over the front of the witness stand. It should be noted that the Marshal was later cleared of any wrongdoing, and as a result of this incident, a mistrial was declared. Number 6. Peter Haffer. Meet Peter Haffer from Cynthiana, Kentucky. He found himself in trouble when he was arrested for burglarizing a local Kmart store. Initially, his lawyer was Doug Crickmer. However, Haffer expressed his lack of confidence in his court-appointed lawyer and believed he deserved better legal representation. Despite his plea, the judge denied his request. Determined to change the situation, Haffer took matters into his own hands. Unexpectedly, he physically assaulted his own attorney, causing chaos in the courtroom. The deputy swiftly intervened and regained control over Haffer. As a result, Crickmer had to be taken to the hospital for treatment. but he decided not to press charges against Haffer. However, Haffer himself faced consequences as he was sentenced to 6 months in jail for contempt of court. Interestingly enough, Haffer's wish for a new lawyer eventually came true when he appeared in court for the original burglary charges. A different lawyer was appointed to represent him. Number 5. Ricky Hand. This is Ricky Hand, a 46-year-old man who was being sentenced for multiple armed robberies through feces in a courtroom after he learned he would be serving 40 years in prison. Ricky Hand asked the judge,
"You just give me 40 years. Listen, you just gave me 40 years."
And he reached for something under his arm. Officials say Hand hid pill bottles filled with feces and urine in his arm sling he was wearing. Within seconds of the outburst, courtroom officials were able to restrain Hand. The sheriff's office is now investigating the courtroom incident. Number 4. Larceny. Judge John McBain, a Jackson County Circuit Court, removed his robe, descended from the bench, and assisted in restraining a disorderly defendant involved in a scuffle with an officer within the courtroom. The defendant, who was present due to violating a personal protection order, disregarded the judge's instructions to keep away from the woman he was accused of harassing. Despite the defendant's continuous defiance and disrespectful behavior towards the judge responded by increasing the defendant's sentence. Initially, the sentence was extended to 45 days, then to 93 days, and finally to 365 days in the county jail.
Buddy,
Stand up.
you're going to a jail for a year in the county. 365 days county jail.
Can't do it.
Appeal it.
I will. Good.
When a court officer instructed the defendant, Larson, to stand up and place his hands behind his back for handcuffing, a physical altercation broke out between the two. Witnessing the struggle, the judge promptly removed his robe, rushed to the officer's aid, and intervened in restraining the defendant. The officer refrained from using a taser on the defendant despite the heightened tension. Subsequently, the judge reconsidered his decision and changed the sentence back to 93 days.
We'll make it 93 if you can think about it.
After explaining the video footage, court officials concluded that Judge McBain acted appropriately in his efforts to uphold order within the courtroom and found no wrongdoing on his part. Number 3. Michael Cox. This is Michael Cox from Roswell, New Mexico. Cox has recently been found guilty of engaging in inappropriate sexual contact with a minor. Following the announcement of the verdict, the judge called upon the attorneys from both sides to approach. On the left stands District Attorney Scott Key, who played a role in securing Cox's conviction. As Key walks back to his seat, Cox suddenly charges at Key, knocking him down. In this particular moment, Cox can be seen taking a swing at Key while he is on the ground. If we go back a bit, we observe Officer Katia Smith timely opening the door just as the attack begins. Acting swiftly, she manages to bring Cox down to the floor. Once Key regains his footing, he seeks retaliation and confronts Cox. Sensing the escalating situation, the judge swiftly leaves his seat and rushes towards the chaos, instructing everyone to evacuate the room. Cox has been sentenced to 18 years in prison for his criminal sexual contact with a minor. Additionally, his conviction for battery results in an additional sentence of 6.5 years. Number 2. Taylor Schabusiness. Introducing Taylor Schabusiness, who is accused of the murder of her boyfriend approximately 1 year ago in Wisconsin. Recently, during a court hearing, the 25-year-old unexpectedly launched an attack on her defense attorney, who was seated beside her.
Stop it. Stop it.
Despite efforts by the court officer to subdue her, the defense made it difficult for him to restrain her. Mental health professionals are currently assessing Schabusiness to determine her competency to stand trial. She faces charges of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a body, and third-degree sexual assault. Asserting her plea of not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, she awaits the judge's ruling on her attorney's request to withdraw from the case. Number 1. Robert Bridges. Meet inmate Robert Bridges, who's been in custody for 5 months, is sitting inside the Hillsborough Circuit Court for a criminal case hearing where he faces burglary and grand theft charges. Sergeant Tracy Wallace, a 19-year-old veteran, along with 2 Hillsborough County deputies, are in the courtroom in full uniform, providing courtroom security. Bridges, secured with leg shackles and handcuffed in front with an attached waist chain, are sitting at the end of the inmate bench, very close to Sergeant Wallace. Bridges pays close attention to Wallace as she walks out. As she returns, he remains focused on the sergeant, and once she gets close enough, Bridges jumps to his feet and makes his move, trying to grab the deputy's holstered sidearm with both hands. But Wallace turns to her right and blocks Bridges' grabs. The two other uniformed deputies immediately spring into action, pushing Bridges back into his seat before picking him up and carrying him out of the courtroom. As for the original charges, he pled no contest and served just over 3 years in prison. As a result of the incident, Bridges was charged with battery on a law enforcement officer and depriving an officer of means of protection.